then while you're turning to Matthew chapter 7, just a few upcoming announcements that you can be aware of. First of all, this Saturday at 4:30, our Lighthouse Mission Outreach is taking place. This is a big event. We are preparing the food for the people at the mission this month, and so please be in prayer about that. And for those that have signed up, thank you. And we look forward to serving alongside you. And this Saturday at 4:30. This Sunday morning, in Sunday school, we are starting a new series in our Sunday school. It is our Continue Discipleship series. We're going to be starting this. Many of you have gone through this before. Some of you may not have ever. And this Sunday, we're going to be starting corporately a 14-week study of discipleship. For those that have been through it, bring your book, and we'll go through it again. This will be a great refresher course for you because everybody needs discipleship, and this course offers so much. For those that are new and never been through this course before and you choose to attend, we will have a free book for you that you can use throughout the course. No cost to you. We budget for things like that. And so that starts this Sunday at 10 a.m. in Sunday school. And Sunday morning we're going through Lessons from the Well. We'll be getting back to part 2 about that. And then the 17th, which is not this Sunday but the next, is our next Fuel Saver Sunday. Sunday school at 10, Sunday morning service at 11, a wonderful meal afterward, and an afternoon service approximately about 1 o'clock. Whenever we get done eating, we'll come in here for an afternoon service and then call it an evening. And there will be no 6 p.m. evening service at that time because our afternoon service will take the place. But this one is a special one. It is Servant Appreciation Sunday as well. We will be honoring those who serve in this church and its ministries, behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, and keep this place going. And because of that, the church will be paying for and catering a meal for this. You will not be disappointed. It will be catered in by Rick's Smokehouse. And so we made that decision this week. So it'll be a wonderful meal to say thank you to everybody who does so much. Even if you think what you do is little, it is so much, and it's a wonderful thing. And so we will recognize our servants on Sunday, the 17th. And then the 23rd, Olive Branch Baptist Church is holding a youth rally in Linton from 2 to 5. We'll be taking a group of kids down to that, and we look forward to doing that. All right, I'll quit there in the month of August. Matthew chapter number 7. We are going to read and then digest. Verse 1. Judge not that ye be not judged. For with what judgment ye judge, ye shall be judged. And with what measure ye mete, it shall be measured to you again. And why beholdest thou the mote that is in thy brother's eye, but considereth not the beam that is in thine own eye? Or how wilt thou say unto thy brother, Let me pull out the mote out of thine eye, and behold, a beam is in thine own eye? Thou hypocrite, first cast out the beam out of thine own eye, and then thou shalt see clearly to cast out the mote out of thy brother's eye. Give not that which is holy unto the dogs, neither cast ye your pearls before swine, lest they trample them under their feet and turn again and rend you. Over the last few weeks, we've been diving through this section, which I'm calling the watch out section, the beware section of the Sermon on the Mount. This started in chapter 6, verse number 19, beware of the treasure trap. Then it went to verse 25, beware of the worry web. And now I'm warning you, as Jesus warns you, in my words, beware of the judgment jungle. Last week we saw number 1, the overarching idea, and we really kind of settled on that. And I wanted to spend time delving into what he means in verse 1 and verse 2 by don't be a judge. We saw the rule in verse number 1 and asked the question, what is judgment? What does he mean by judge not? And he's not talking about discernment. He's not talking about the ability to consider decisions that need to be made and come to sensible conclusions. You know, we all have to have good judgment. If I walk down a dark alley at night and there's a guy with a big knife at the other end of it, My judgment says, don't go down that alley. How about yours? I'm not talking about that sort of judgment. We are talking about the idea of condemning. And what do we mean by condemning? We mean having a condemning or harsh or hypocritical spirit towards others. You know what this means. We've all been there, and we've all received it. Maybe you grew up and you had a relative, maybe close as your parent, or grandparent, or brother, or sister, or a teacher, or a coworker who was just always condemning and harsh and hypocritical in their spirit. Jesus is saying, don't be that guy, or don't be that lady. And this is a big deal. We're not supposed to condemn with a harsh or hypocritical spirit. And secondly, if I could add another layer to that, we are not to assume God's role as final judge in this world. And what does that look like? Saying, that person's lost and on their way to hell. That person's lost and on their way to hell. You don't know that. Okay? You do not know that. As much as you think you can discern if somebody is on their way to heaven or hell or not, to take the step and make up your mind and say that to them publicly or other people publicly assumes the role of God as final judge. We do not know. And we saw that rule, judge not. And why not? Why should we not judge? We saw this in verse 1 and 2 as well. Because of the sowing and reaping principle. Because you're asking for it. You're asking for that to come back on you. You go out there and be harsh and hypocritical and condemning in your spirit. Guess what you're going to have hit you in the teeth? People of the same manner. Do you like that? Do you like it when people treat you that way? Do you like it when people do that? And we're really leading up to verse number 7. We're really leading up to verse number 12 in the golden rule. I mean, this is pending, but we'll jump there anyway. Verse 12 of chapter 7, therefore all things whatsoever ye would do that men should do unto you, do even unto them. You want to be judged? You want to be condemned? You want to be treated like lesser than? Then don't do it to others. Then don't do it to others. So we see, number one, the overarching idea. That's what we focused on last week. All right? Can we all agree that judging, Jesus is telling us the right thing to do, and becoming that sort of person, being a condemner and hypocritical and angry and mean towards other people is just not the path to take? Can we agree with that? Okay. Second point is found in verse 3 and 5, 3, 4, and 5. And he gives us an illustration. So we see the overarching idea in verse 1 and 2. Don't be a judge. Number 2, notice the optical illustration here. Let me read it again. Now, you know these verses, okay? But I want to read them again and see if you can notice a couple things about them as we look at it one more time. Verse 3, and why beholdest thou the mote that is in thy brother's eye, but considereth not the beam that is in thine own eye? Or how wilt thou say unto thy brother, let me pull out the mote out of thine eye, and behold, a beam is in thine own eye? All right, let's just start there. What do you notice about verse 3 and 4 if you could categorize them as a sentence? What do you notice about 3 or 4? 3 and 4. If you were to categorize 3 and 4 as a sentence, these are two what? What do they end with? What? Two questions. Two questions. Now, Jesus here is asking two questions. We see here questions that are trying to get our minds to consider a couple things. And so I call verse 3 and 4 dual considerations here because he's asking us two questions. Now, maybe you don't have the time, but these two questions are trying to bring out two sort of considerations. He's trying to get you to consider two different things. A consideration for verse 3 and a consideration for verse 4. What do you think he's trying to get us to consider by asking these two questions? All right, these are not just random questions, okay? The first question, he is getting us to consider our perception. And the second question in verse 4, he's trying to get us to consider our presumption. If there is presumption and perception. look at the question about perception in verse 3 one more time. And notice, why beholdest? See this? Beholdest. That means to look, to be aware of, obviously, but to look. The mote. Now, what's a mote? Most of us know this. We've heard these sermons before, but a mote would be a twig, maybe even smaller than a twig, maybe a piece of straw even. Could be a mote, but a very small piece of wood. Why beholdest the mote, the very small twig that is in thy brother's eye, but considerest? And the word considerest means not just to think about, it means to fully observe. You are not fully observing the beam. And the idea here is a stick, a piece of timber, as some people often joke, a telephone pole, all right? And that is not far away from the idea. If our necks could hold the weight of a telephone pole being in our eye, that would be an appropriate illustration. But better off to say a stick, a stick, the beam, the twig, the mote. And if it helps you to mark those out in your Bible and put it there, do it. Or to highlight that to the side, do it, to understand, because it's that important. It's saying, an illustration. There's a guy, and he sees in his brother's eye is a twig. But he doesn't notice the stick that is in his own eye. This is a question about perception. Now, have you ever had anything in your eye? Raise your hand if you've ever had anything in your eye. I mean, a better question would be, have you ever had anything in your eye recently? Because we all have had something in our eye. Yeah, I mean, the eye is a very sensitive place. I mean, I think the first thing in all of our eyes that we can remember probably was when we had our hair washed as a kid and the soap ran down into your eyes. Do you remember that? Maybe you were a parent and you remember that happened to your child, and that is a belligerent crying event. When a small child who has no idea what's going on has soap run into their eyes for the very first time, it is a blood-curdling scream. That's at least what happened in my house. I don't know about yours. But like that's what. Now, why is there a blood-curdling scream over soap in an eye? Because the eye is an extremely sensitive part of our body. All right, I don't want anybody in my eye. I remember the first time I got a bug in my eye. I can remember many summer evenings at my grandma's house where I got a bug in my eye, or my brother got a bug in his eye, or somebody got a bug in their eye, and it completely put the brakes on our evening. Like, you're not playing or doing anything until the bug is out of the eye, because it's like, this has to be taken care of now. There's no like coping with something in your eye. We've all had stuff in our eye before. All right? Now, when you have something in your eye, to point out that you need assistance is an understatement. Now, you need to consider a few things if you are going to ask somebody to help you get something out of your eye. So let's say you're outside and all of a sudden one of those little gnat thingies hits you right in the eye. I mean, it almost drops you to your knees. It's in there. It rolls back behind a little bit. You're feeling it. It's painful. It's irritating. Your eye is watering. You can't even open it. And you need somebody to assist you. I think there is a little bit of a resume that somebody may need to fill out before they help you. Don't you think? I mean, are you going to let anybody just help you fix your eye? What's rule number one if you want somebody to help you with your eye? All right? And I would say this rule is even more important than having clean hands. Anybody want to take a guess? Somebody who knows what they're doing. Knows what they're doing, maybe. I would say something about this. Even more basic than that. Trust them. If I'm bad enough, I may ask somebody I don't even know. Here's the number one rule for asking if somebody can help you get something out of your eye. They have to be able to see. Am I right? Now, no offense to Keith Reedy. I asked him if I could talk about him tonight, but if I got something in my eye, I ain't asking Keith. You know, offense to Keith, but you get my point, right? Keith is a great guy, and he can help on a world of things. But if I have something in my eye, I'm not asking Keith. Okay? No disrespect to Keith. But you get my point. Even before you can wash your hands is the requirement. I need somebody who can see what's going on. And this verse right here is telling me that if somebody can't see clearly, they are disqualified from helping. But here's a guy who's got a twig in his eye, and he wants to be helped by, or somebody who has a stick in their eye and can't see clearly is now offering help. No, this doesn't make sense. This is not the person you choose to help you with the most sensitive and delicate area of life. Okay? So, here's what this is saying, if I could back out into the context here. To be in the business of judging others. To be that person that has that condemning, harsh, critical spirit. Okay? You possess the lack of judgment to help other people. You can't see clearly to help them. When you have a judgmental, critical, condemning spirit, you can't help people properly because you can't clearly see what's going on as long as you have that unconfessed sin in your life. Are you seeing the connection here? But nonetheless, that doesn't stop people from trying, does it? It's a question of perception. And then number 4, it's a question of presumption. Verse 4, or how wilt thou say to thy brother, let me pull out the mote out of thine eye, and behold, a beam is in thine own eye. You can not only see well, but you are further blinded by the presumption that you can still fix the problem. Okay? Again, I'm not meaning to pick on Keith. I asked his permission to say this, okay? So I hope it doesn't sound harsh or unkind or unclear. I have his permission. But if I had something in my eye and Keith said, let me help you, and I said, no. And Keith said, no, seriously, I can do this. Okay, we've crossed into the realm of insanity here. Because it's not going to happen. How would you view Keith if he said that he could help me get something out of my eye and he insisted, of course I can. Are you dumb? I can do it. I'm Keith Reedy. I can get that thing out of your eye. What do you think the proper term to describe that is? Not thinking straight. And again, how would you describe a person that says, I can help you fix your sin problem, but they have the problem of being harsh, critical, and condemning in their spirit? Now, we see here the dual consideration in verse 3 and 4, and this leads us to verse 5, the discernible conclusion. What's the state of the heart of a person who has a judgmental, critical, condemning spirit, and they say, I got a problem, or they don't even admit they have a problem, but let me get that little tiny speck out of your eye, but they got the telephone pole in their eye. What is the state of their heart, verse 5 says in the first two verses, or first two words? What's the second word of verse 5? Yeah. You're a hypocrite. If you think that you are critical and condemning and mean and angry in your spirit towards others, and you think that you can actually help somebody else, not only are you crazy, illogical, insane, you're a hypocrite. You're a hypocrite. This is the 4th time in this sermon, and the final time that Jesus has used this word. Chapter 6, he used it to describe those that give and, make a big deal out of it and have their praise of men, those that fast and those that pray that do the same. These people that do it for show. Again, this is another form of that. And there is a form of hypocrite that is religious and likes to do things not for the purpose of helping others, but for the purpose of making themselves look better. It's the showboat narcissist. I'm going to do this service so I can make myself look good, even if I don't have the qualifications or the ability to do it. Hypocrite. Let me take another example for you. Let's say somebody stands up in church on Sunday morning and they confess an issue that they've been having. And they're asking for people to pray for them. And let's say it's something like some so-and-so stands up in church and says, you know what, I've had a hard time in my prayer life lately. I haven't been praying as I should. And I'm just asking the church to help me, pray for me that my prayer life would get better. Okay, that's a simple thing, right? Something that's happened in common. And so let's say somebody stands up in church on Sunday and says, pray for me. I've been struggling in my prayer life. I just need help with that. It would be great. I could really use some prayer on that. I've been struggling, yada, yada, yada. They sit down. And then at the end of the service, so-and-so, let me call so-and-so, somebody that attends church once every blue moon, okay? And so-and-so that has a known vice. Let's say they are an alcoholic. So-and-so who shows up once every blue moon and everybody knows in the town has a alcohol problem, walks up to the person after the service that asked for the prayer and says, you know what, let me just kind of mentor you on how to get your prayer life right. All right, and let's say you were standing back and watching this. What would be going on in your mind? After church, the blue moon, once in a blue moon, alcoholic walks up to the person who's faithful and tries and just needs some help with their prayer life and says, let me give you a couple tips on how my prayer life is so good. What's going to go on in your mind? Well, there's a couple questions that would stir up in my head. How about you? How's this guy going to help so-and-so if he can't even help himself? Is that a logical question? Or maybe you could even go to this realm. Who does this guy think he is to even step up here and try to help so-and-so? Or maybe we could say, how big of a hypocrite is this guy? That he would think that he is able to give anybody any advice about anything spiritually. Now, I know this is an extreme example. But here's the example again the text gives us. If you are unjustly judging others, these questions can be asked of you or me. How are you going to help somebody when you can't even help yourself? Well, it's not that big of a deal. It's not like I have this external vice that everybody could see. No. You have a worse one sometimes. It's an internal one. And God doesn't say, internal vices like condemning others. That's an okay little sin you got there. It's not that big a deal versus somebody who has some external problem. Both are wrong. Both have issues. And both blind our ability to help anyone else. How are you going to help someone when you can't even help yourself? Who do you think you are? And how hypocritical can you be? And so here we see the state of the heart. And in its direct context, it's not alcohol or drugs or lewd relationships. It's judging. That's the context. The direct context. Not to say that those other things wouldn't be true as well. They are all applicable. But notice which example and idea this stems from. So we see the state of the heart in verse 5, but notice the solution of the heart. He actually tells you how to deal with it in verse 5. First cast out the beam out of thine own eye, and then thou shalt see clearly to cast out the mote out of thy brother's eye. So here's the solution. Purge the sin, your sin, my sin, and then pursue service. Purge the sin, pursue the service. In that order. We first cast out the beam. It means to eject. It's the idea of saying, search me, O God. Know my heart. Try me. Know my thoughts. See if there be any wicked way in me, and lead me in the way and the life everlasting. When was the last time you said that? Anytime you are about to step into the realm of service of God, it would be wise for us all to pray that prayer. Lord, Is there anything that is hindering my vision on how to serve you properly? Is there anything that is between me and you that I need to pray about and confess? And sometimes, you know what? We are out and about and we don't have the ability to ramp up into service. It just is thrust upon us. Next thing you know, all this is happening. You're helping somebody and you didn't even sign up for it. It just happened organically or randomly, and you don't have time to pray. You need to keep a short account with God, especially in this realm of judging others. You need to purge the sin, then pursue the service. Notice at the end of verse number 5, then thou shalt see clearly. See, a person with a telephone pole in their eye can see a little bit, but they can't see clearly. And the word clearly here, I like this. It means to look through. It means to recover full vision. You need full vision. This business of helping people find God and connect people with God is a delicate business. As delicate as pulling something out of someone's eye. That's how delicate this business of serving God and serving others is. You don't need to be a bull in the china shop. You need to do it delicately, thoughtfully, and prayerfully. If I came to you and said, pull this out of my eye, there would be precautions you would take, I would hope. Washing your hands, I would hope. Maybe even finding some sort of tool to help that would alleviate. Maybe finding some sort of aid. If you were to walk into a local optometrist and you were to walk in and say, I have something in my eye, I need assistance from an optometrist. The optometrist would sit you down in a room and take all sorts of precautions and use all sorts of tools to aid you in the removal of that thing safely. They wouldn't just grab a stick and start stirring around in there. It's a delicate business. They would magnify. They would lubricate the eye. They would take precautions in cleanliness, use whatever tools necessary to make sure that the job was done delicately without any damage. But how often do we, in the idea of ministry, just willy-nilly this one? Well, they're lost. I guess I'll just shoot from the hip on the gospel here. We ought to be delicate. We ought to make sure that our sin is purged before we pursue the service. And just like an optometrist office would have a plethora of tools, you too as well have a plethora of tools. The Scripture is one of them. The Holy Spirit is another. And don't forget about the wonders of prayer. And how are you going to explain the Scriptures, pray, and have access to the Holy Ghost if you ain't right with God? It's like saying, hey, I need an optometrist to help me, but you can't use any of your tools. Something's going to go wrong. The potential for the risk goes up. You see what I'm saying here? So we have this overarching idea. Judge not, that you be not judged. We have this optical illustration. And then we have verse number 6, which doesn't seem like it fits, but it very much does. I call this the obvious impact. Look at verse number 6 again. Verse number 6 says, give not that which is holy unto the dogs, neither cast ye your pearls before swine, lest they trample them under their feet and turn again and rend you. Now, I want to tell you the first time I ever heard this. First time I ever heard this verse was on the streets of Pensacola. I was a new college student. I'd never heard this verse before until this night on what we call Christian service downtown Pensacola. We used to go downtown Pensacola and hand out tracts, invite people to church, try to start up conversations and witness to people. And I could take it to this spot. I see it as clear as day. I think I was by myself, or I and another guy. We're at this place. There was downtown Seville Square, Pensacola. There was a bar right across from a park. And I've come across the street, and out from this bar stumbles this man, very well dressed, all right, very nice dressed guy. But he's stumbling out of the bar to the point where I am assisting this guy because he's almost fallen over. And I come up to this guy and say, whoa, buddy, let me help you up. And I start to walk with him to his car, which he should not be driving. But hey, who am I? And as we were walking, I thought myself pretty slick that night because I said, well, this guy's obviously drunk. He's not going to remember me, even though I remember him 20 years later. He's not going to remember me, but I'm going to put this track in his front pocket as I'm walking down. So I got my arm around this guy, and I'm putting a track in his pocket. I'm bad to the bone. All right, and I'm escorting him down, and he's, hey, man, how's it going? I'm like, thanks for helping me. He's like, oh, no problem, man. You doing okay? You going to be all right? He's like, you're not driving, are you? He said, no, my wife's driving. And she comes out the bar just as lit up as he is. Very well dressed, very nice dress, and she's slurring her speech. And she says, well, who are you? And I said, well, I'm just a guy from Pensacola Christian College. We're just out passing out tracts. And she looks at me and says, you're not supposed to cast your pearls before swine. And that's the first time I heard this verse. And thinking about that verse in that context, she was misapplying the verse, oddly enough. I was shocked by that because she was not properly understanding it in its context, you know. She was insinuating that this verse means you're not supposed to witness to people who are in sin. That's not what this verse means. You know, we kind of struggle with what exactly this verse means. And the way I have viewed this verse in the past at one time was you better make sure you help those who are not going to make light of it. That's kind of always how I've seen this verse. Well, you know, you don't cast your pearls before swine. You don't give that which is holy unto the dogs. You don't waste your time helping people that are going to make light of what you're doing. That's not what it means either. This verse has the idea of this. You better make sure that you are not the reason people are making light of what is godly. That's what this verse means. Don't be the reason that people are trampling that which is holy or casting out that which is like pearls before swine. So this is an important thing. And this is in the context of judging. What he is saying here, that if you go through this idea of judging and harshly condemning people, and you don't get that beam out of your eye, and you go out there and try to help somebody, you're going to do it wrong. And people are going to see that you're doing it wrong because they got a brain in their head. And they're going to say, hey, how do you, hypocrite, think you can talk to me? You ain't going to talk to me because I know who you are. You're that judging hypocrite down at that church. I don't have to listen to the thing you say. And they're going to take that which is holy, that which is right, and they're going to trample it. And they're going to turn and rend you, it says. Because you are the problem. Now, I consume a lot of news. I love consuming news. I'm obsessed with it. I got nothing to do sometimes. No, I got a lot to do. But one of the things I like to do is listen to the news. And I'm not a journalist, but I always imagine being a journalist. It'd be fun to be a journalist in my book. I'd try to be one of the good ones. But here's rule number one of being a journalist, all right? Being a person that's out there reporting the news or taking the news. Rule number one, don't, as a journalist, become the story. And sometimes the journalist or the news people become the story. That's rule number one. You are supposed to report the news, not to become the news. One of the first rules of being a Christian witness, don't become the bad example that everybody points to. What happens when you try to help someone and you are so corrupted with a judging attitude? It's like trying to throw an Outback steak to a pack of wolves. It's a waste. It's like wearing your best clothing in the pig pen. This verse teaches us that when we fail to heed this warning, we are wasting opportunities and damaging the testimony of Christ. We are dishonoring that which is honorable when we try to give the words of grace and mercy between the words of unjust judgment. And so here we see in verse number 6, quickly as I conclude, an unheeded, neither cast ye your pearl before swine. This is for people who don't listen to verses 1 through 5. And then you get the unwanted way, verse 6. They're going to trample you. They're going to turn again and rend you. What happens when you're the bad example? You become the next fodder for the masses. Ask Jerry Falwell. Ask Jimmy Swaggart. Ask Jack Hiles. Ask anybody who has become a bad example in this Christian life. You are the next round of fodder for the people who hate God or are trying to use it as an excuse to be away from Him. People have all sorts of reasons to reject Jesus, to not come to church, to live for themselves, and to ignore God. But you and I should not be one of those reasons. And if we do become one of those reasons, that is an unpleasant place to be. The right thing from a wrong person will become the wrong thing. I say that again. The right thing from the wrong person doesn't become the right thing. It's the wrong thing. And when you have somebody that, yes, they are trying to serve God, but they are doing it from a hypocritical, judgmental attitude, that's the wrong thing. We need to endeavor to be the right person doing the right thing, so all will be right. And that starts off with not being a judge. Judge not, that ye be not judged. See, he tells you, and this is why verse 6 sticks. Be not judged by whom? Verse 6, people, lest they turn again and rend you. That's what he's talking about. That's the sowing and reaping principle. It's going to come back on you. Because we didn't take care of it, because we thought we could have it both ways. We thought we could be hypocritical and still serve God. Guess what comes back on our heads? Got to be careful about this. Jesus takes 6 verses out of this wonderful sermon to make sure that we understand the danger of the judgment jungle. Let's pray tonight and ask God to help us not be the judge, to let Him be the judge. Father, thank you for the time that we could spend in the Word tonight. Again, Lord, please help us to search our hearts and to seek not to judge. Lord, allow us to leave the judging up to you. Help us just to serve with clear vision that we may make a difference for the cause of Christ. Watch over us as we go our separate ways. In Jesus' name, amen. Thanks for coming to church tonight. You're dismissed.